If I were to sum up this semester in one word, and I mean, if I really had to think about it, it would probably be ambition. Particularly in the studio, much of our objectives were based around exploring and developing ourselves as young designers, building a breadth of experiences and exploring outcomes through a variety of different mediums to really help us find our feet. For my first outcome, I described my If Only poster as a kind of wish for myself to be more brave. And I really tried to carry that sentiment throughout all of my work this semester. As a designer and a creative person in general, you have to really kind of have a bit of an ego. The ability to kind of create, formulate, and present an idea from beginning to end, sometimes without the help of others, and most definitely without anyone's support. So you have to kind of be able to stand beside and defend your ideas as if they were quite literally your own children. This is something that I personally struggle with quite a bit, as I have a real fear, maybe rational or not, of my ideas being shit. So imagine my surprise when our second assignment required us to individually come up with a product or idea and bring it to fruition by the end of the semester. My initial feelings were this kind of mix of fear and excitement, the kind that puts a real pit in the bottom of your stomach. The feeling that, oh wow, this is real. I'm in the right place, but now I kind of have to actually do work to prove, mostly to myself, why I'm here. It wasn't just that this studio developed me throughout this semester, but particularly Project 1 in publication design, where I encountered my first hiccup. Project 1 for both publication design as well as comm design outlined one major issue with my design process. I have a tendency to try and do more than I am currently capable of. In layman's terms, it essentially means that I try and bite off more than I can chew. That doesn't always end negatively, but in both comm design and publications design, it was the first time that I had really been kind of called out for it by someone that wasn't myself. And so my journey for the rest of the semester became to take the multitude of ideas in my head and be conscientious enough to kind of discern what I can and actually do and in turn deliver for my projects throughout the rest of the semester. It seems contradictory to what I said about ego, but this semester was a journey in kind of developing my ego, not just as a facet of my personality, but mostly as a tool that I could use in design. It's not simply enough to be confident and to stand by my ideas. I must also be self-aware enough to be able to know what ideas work, what ideas don't work, and when to axe an idea when it isn't entirely on target. To do this meant constant reflection, and so I did what any sane person would do: annoy their friends about it. This allowed me to get an opinion on my ideas that would more often be a little bit harsh, but would most definitely push me on the right direction in terms of where I wanted to go with my projects. Especially Project 2. This feedback essentially let me test the ideas before bringing them to class every single week throughout the semester. I started to realize that the more I fought for an idea, the harder I fought for an idea, and the more I was like, hey, look, this is what I wanted to do, this is the one that I want to present to you, it's the more interesting design, was the one that more often than not had more motivation behind it for myself to provide higher work, or higher quality work, I guess. It's better for me to go through with a project that is functionally, I guess, not as strong. However, I'd rather that than listen to an idea that someone else thought was promising and then halfway through the development of that idea realize that it has no legs to stand on, and I actually think it's quite boring because I'm not quite personally invested in it. I just chose it because someone else decided it was cool. So that's what I did for Maestro, probably my favorite project of the entire semester. Taking the research my group and I put together to formulate a bunch of ideas and getting to kind of whittle those ideas down to just 5 really good ones. And then out of those 5, picking just one was tough, to say the least. but necessary. It was everything that I needed to learn in order to not just be successful in this course, but in my professional career. This is where my friends came into play again. Having a support network of people that aren't necessarily designers allowed me to kind of really formulate an idea for my projects that I thought could be applicable to everyone else and the everyday user. However, on the more technical side, I guess, I believe my classmates were my biggest inspiration, as well as my biggest motivators. Seeing everyone warm up across the course of the semester and really become a small community allowed me to really hone in on what I wanted my designs to be, which was community focused. I wanted that to be the core of everything that I designed and essentially a lifeblood through everything that I produced for my projects, for projects 2. And so that's how the Maestro idea was finalized, as well as my process and approach to conveying these messages through my presentations. My approach was making the presentations as engaging as possible in order to really zero in on the classroom and the community that had been built in the room, allowing the people in the classroom to really feel included, as well as to partake in the project that they had inspired me to make. As much as I'd spoken positively about building my ego in this video, it's also important for me to recognize that my ego is probably my biggest flaw in terms of my design practice, causing an overwhelming amount of my own creative blocks. This is because my own ego prevents me from essentially letting go of an idea, regardless of how bad it is. If it's too confusing, too difficult to understand, too long. But because I'd been sitting down with the idea for such a long time, trying to develop it, my ego wouldn't let me see its own shortcomings. Like, I wouldn't be able to develop the idea further and drop things that I thought weren't necessary. And to overcome this, I found myself disconnecting almost completely from the assignment on numerous occasions. I would find inspirations to kind of overcome the challenges that I was facing in the weirdest places after doing that. Like, I would be playing a game of Monster Hunter and find myself having to turn off the console afterwards because I would find a way to integrate community into either the app or a site, or decide to put a QR code into the ticket for my presentation so that the class can feel a bit more connected and really understand the VR experience that this project was kind of trying to build. And I think my favorite one, the funniest one, watching an episode of One Piece and deciding it would be a fantastic idea to play music during my presentation to add ambiance. Disconnecting allowed me to really kind of escape from that reality distortion field that's created when all you do is get so absorbed in your own creative vision that everything else seems to kind of fall away. It allowed me to kind of really remove my feelings from the equation, fill myself with new ideas, and return back with a fresh mind, and a new outlook on the content that I was creating. So where does all of this leave me at the end of the 12 weeks, at the end of the semester? And what can I take into the future with me? Well, as I stated, ego and ambition are the two things that I wanted to develop in myself, both now and in my future career. Really gathering a sense for the kind of designer that I am, and being able to build, support, execute, and present that idea with relentless ambition.